Can David slay Goliath? 3 of North America's best try to take down the reigning Affiliate Cup champions in our featured matchup of quarterfinal test number 2.
Go.
Hi everyone, Tommy Marquez and Neil Maddox back again, bringing you the featured matchup for team test number 2. This time we're doing male-female pairs, and we're gonna start male-female pair. Number 1 is gonna tackle 70 synchro GHD sit-ups, 14 rope climbs, 70 synchro alternating single leg squats. They'll start back at the top. This time the reps go 50, 10 and 50, and once they're done, they'll tag off to the second male-female pair who will do the same exact sequence. The 4 teams featured today: in your upper left-hand corner, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. No surprise that they're here. In the upper right-hand corner, i1uvit. In the bottom left-hand corner, Gold Standard Athletics holding it down for us California crew out here. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, On Track, all 4 teams out of North America and all 4 teams competing for the top spot on the same continent leaderboard. As we're 1 minute in so far into this 25-minute workout brought to you by Beast Gooder, and first time we're seeing synchro movements show up, and it's the GHD sit-up.
Yeah, what I'm looking at right now is basically, I'm looking at the Freedom Mayhem, CrossFit Freedom, Mayhem Freedom, top left. When I'm looking at them, if you look at their speed and efficiency, they have not slowed down. That's the same pace they started with. If you look at the bottom left, Gold Standard Athletics, if you saw, they were keeping pace with CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, but they have slowed down a little bit. But if you look at that CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, consistency, speed, and efficiency, awesome to blow.
And Mayhem, and Neil, we've talked about this a ton. A cornerstone of that Mayhem Freedom programming is the GHD sit-ups, and I think you're kind of seeing what that develops as far as teamwork is concerned, because they're not even looking at each other. They're just rifling as fast as they can, and they know that they're in sync.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously they have a great leader by having Rich as their head coach and all that stuff, but I mean, if you look at this, I mean, it's just pretty amazing how quick they're off that GHD and onto the rope. I mean, think about that, 70 GHDs, that's like a backbreaker for me.
I feel you there. 70 GHDs in one chunk, like Andrea Nisler and Mayhem Freedom, the pair to go first for CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. I mean, and Andrew Nisler and Rich Froning never cease to amaze me, and they ripped off those 70 GHD sit-ups like it was just a walk in the park. And right now, all 4 teams are onto their round of 14 rope climbs. Now remember, these athletes can break these up as needed, so it is a bit of choose your own adventure, as we just saw Rory McKernan walk through the frame there. I don't know what he's doing. I know he's not competing, but we do have a little bit of a blockage here in the bottom left-hand corner from Gold Standard Athletics.
So actually, if you look at Gold Standard Athletics, the bottom left team, you actually saw their athlete, their male athlete, actually he's going for his 3rd rope climb right now to help spell his female athlete.
And that's interesting. I mean, you know, obviously these teams can break it up however they want. So far, Rich Froning and Andrea Nisler going 1 for 1, but you know, you can play these cards however you want. If you have someone that's proficient on the rope, you can let them chew up a little bit more ground.
Yeah, I think their strategy is pretty smart, because if you saw how she was getting up the rope, she can get up the rope, but the speed and efficiency just isn't as fast as the other females that we see on the screen.
Mm-hmm. And the male athlete from Gold Standard Athletics doing a nice big jump, 1 quick pinch, and then almost kind of like a half pinch there to get himself up to the 15-foot target, yeah. Making quick work of them so far.
Well, luckily you don't have to use your arms in this workout, because he was pulling big time with his arms, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that's going to affect him later on in this workout.
And so far it is the pair of Andrea Nisler and Rich Froning from CrossFit Mayhem Freedom leading the way. They're followed closely behind by Gold Standard Athletics and i1uvit. On Track was the 4th team to make it to the rope in this first section of 14 rope climbs for the male-female pair number 1, and Mayhem Freedom is the first team onto these synchronized pistols. I gotta say, I'm not someone who's very proficient at pistols, but when you see 2 athletes do it like that in sync, it is a thing of beauty.
I'm actually just looking at the technique of the female athlete. You'll see one side she dips down where she grabs her toe, and the other side she dips down where she doesn't grab her toe. I haven't seen that technique, but it's pretty interesting. They're still moving fast and efficiently, but interesting technique.
And Gold Standard Athletics in the bottom left was the second team to the single-legged squats, but it looks like they're struggling a little bit as far as the cadence and pacing is concerned.
When I'm looking at Gold Standard Athletics, they're the bottom left screen. If you look, I'm just looking at the athlete's heel. Every time she's going down, just look at that heel. That heel creeps off. Actually, you can see it in the male athlete slightly too. When your heel starts coming off, that does going to have a ripple effect into your knee, all the way up into your quad, into your hip. So what you'll start seeing is that their pace is going to slow down drastically, because that means that their form is breaking down, that they aren't proficient in it.
And then the inverse of that, I love it, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, looking pretty smooth so far, but no surprise from the team with an athlete like Mitchell Stevenson with some games experience on his back.
Yeah, when I'm looking at I Love It, I'm looking at their pistols, and if you notice, their legs aren't necessarily straight. She actually has a slight bend in her knee, and she kind of swooshes her legs out to the side to get it back. It's what I'm curious about, she can do it in this first round. I'm going to see how it's going to affect her in the round of 50s. Does it keep her fast and efficient, or is it going to slow them down and tire them out? But right now, they look like they're moving at a good pace.
And that is always the danger with these single-legged squats, trying to make sure that off leg doesn't touch the ground in any way. Neil, I'm curious, pistols, were they a good movement, preferred movement, or just something you kind of dealt with as you got through competition?
Oh man, I love pistols. Pistols were something that I loved in my earlier years when I did it. Matter of fact, I still remember the regional workout where they had the front squats with the pistols. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was wait, was it the front squats with the pistols? No, I don't think it was. I've done so many workouts, I forgot the workout. But all I remember in regionals, there was a pistol workout, and I do love pistols. Well, I did. Not anymore, but I did.
There was a couple significant ones. I think 2012, you had the row, the hang cleans, and the pistols together. Oh man, that was brutal.
Yes.
It was a front squat for a lot of people because they had to hang squat clean every rep.
Yes, it was a 2K row with 50 pistols, and you had to turn around and do 30 hang cleans at 225.
I remember that was a beast of a workout there for regionals back in the day. As we see, most of these teams are well into their second round of this test for their first male and female pair. As we mentioned, Gold Standard Athletics is the one team, though, that is still on round number 1. They were the second team of this bunch to make it to the single leg squats, and the last team out of it. Just goes to show you how difficult they can be if you're not proficient in that movement, and how much it can jumble up this leaderboard. But so far, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, the pair of Rich Froning and Andrea Nisler, leads the way, followed closely behind by I Love It in second, and then On Track right now is in third.
So when I watch CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, I thought they were still on their first round of 70 with how fast they're moving through those 50. They have not broken once. And look, they're right back onto that rope climb. I believe I Love It, the team top right, they actually took a quick little break. So I'm wondering how much time they can make up while Mayhem Freedom is doing those rope climbs. It's going to be a challenge right now, especially if you take a break and they don't.
And it's a nice reminder that these are 4 of the top teams in North America. So it makes you a little jaded to see Mayhem Freedom just kind of blast through that without any breaks, and makes you realize that, that's not necessarily the standard for everyone else, as teams like I Love It and On Track, have to take a quick break in this set of 50 GHD sit-ups to close out the round number 2 of this test for the first female pair. And right now it's Mayhem Freedom and I Love It, the 2 top teams at the top of your screen, both out of North America right now, working through 10 rope climbs. And those athletes are allowed to switch as needed, divvy it up however you want. And so far, Mayhem Freedom still opting for that 1-on-1 rep breakup between Rich and Andrea.
So now if you guys look at the bottom of the screen, you have Gold Standard Athletics on the bottom left, and you have On Track in the bottom right. If you guys are watching those GHDs, On Track just finished up, but I want you to look at Gold Standard Athletics on the left. If you guys saw the athlete and the lady or the male who are doing their GHDs, if you notice, as they're coming up, they're bending their knees when they're touching that pad. They would actually get faster if when they went back, they snapped those knees and squeezed and flexed their quads when they came up and kept their knees locked out. It would give them a little bit more power into that. So you can see that those pistols are affecting their GHDs, which is slowing them down a little bit.
And why is that, you think? Is that just a matter of fatigue, maybe trying to switch up the stimulus there?
Well, what I'm seeing right now is fatigue, because if you look at it, you're doing rope climbs right now where you're going to be using your legs to pull your legs up, where you just lit them up on the GHD. So your hip flexors and your psoas are lit up. And so now when you go into the pistols, guess what? You still don't get a break. All of a sudden, you're going back and you're hammering out those legs. And so what's happening is, as you guys start to see their heels come off, and I'm talking about gold standard athletics, and when they get to their pistols, I think that, well, it's not that I think, but I have a strong feeling that is bleeding right into their GHDs and is affecting their legs.
And right now, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, just smooth as ever, wrapping up their 50 synchro alternating single leg squats, in which case their pair will tag off to their second male-female pair. That will be Chase Hill and Taylor Williamson. They'll be tasked with closing out this test for them, and we just saw a quick no rep from them as they got slightly out of sync. But I think that's a testament to, just the proficiency of this team, that they can absorb a no rep like that and keep chugging forward as they wrap up the first portion of this test and tag off to their second female pair. They are well ahead of the rest of the pack right now. I love it. The team that's been in second, they're on their single leg squats. On track, looks like they were struggling with the rope climb, couldn't finish it off, and they have fallen into fourth now, falling behind Gold Standard Athletics as we cross the 11-minute mark here. Now remember, 25-minute cap, so the halfway point is 12 minutes and 30 seconds. That's the mark you're looking for this first male-female pair to get done underneath, to make sure that they give is equal amount of time for the second pair to make sure they get underneath the time cap.
So let's go back to those GHDs. Remember how I told you guys about Gold Standard Athletics and how they're bending their knees and keeping their knees bent as they're coming up? If you look at CrossFit Mayhem Freedom in the top left-hand corner, I want you to look. As they go back, there's a slight break in their legs. As they touch the pad, they fire and squeeze those quads, straighten those legs, and they fire up. Look at the speed and efficiency on those GHDs. That's all by them using proper technique, performing those GHDs.
And Mayhem Freedom putting on a clinic right now. About 12 minutes into this workout, or into this test, excuse me, and CrossFit Mayhem Freedom is leading wire to wire so far. Their second male-female pairing of Chase Hill and Taylor Williamson, working through 70 synchro GHD sit-ups, and right now, I love it, the only other team into their second male-female pair, and the only other team to do so before we hit the halfway point here, as On Track also just narrowly gets under that halfway mark as they tag off to their second male-female pair. And right now, Gold Standard Athletics, the pistols, the single-legged squats for that first pairing, coming to bite them yet again as they tag off to their second female pair. And now we are into the back half of this test for all four teams. In this test number 2, they'll be starting back at the top. You can see the full test brought to you by Beast Gooder on the right-hand side of your screen. 70 synchro GHD sit-ups first, followed by 14 rope climbs, 70 synchro alternating single leg squats, then the reps change to 50, 10, and 50.
Same thing, I'm looking at Gold Standard Athletics, bottom left. I'm looking at their female athlete, and if you look right there, you see how when she's firing up, her knees are bent? Sometimes when your knees are bent, yeah, you could go fast on that first round, but when you aren't using those quads and the efficiency of those quads, it's going to add up and it's going to catch up to you in the later rounds.
One thing we don't talk about a ton, with rope climbs, at least recently, is the descent. And I'm kind of curious, Chase Hill has an interesting way of dropping down from the rope. And Neil, I know you've probably experimented with a few different ways, but we've seen some athletes drop, slide down, kind of pinch with the leg. There's no real requirement here as far as, a tape line that you have to show control for. You can just come right down it. If that's the case, what is kind of your preferred method of getting down from the rope?
Well, it just depends on what type of workout it is. Now, if it's a workout where I'm using my legs, I'm going to slide down the rope. Now, if it's a workout where I'm using more upper body, I'm going to squat down and drop off the rope. So you know, it just changes up depending on what I'm mixing it up with. Now, here, if you notice, they're using their legs a lot. So here, I'd actually start using and pulling with my upper body more than using my legs, so I can save my legs for the pistols. So you have two ways of looking at it. It just comes down to where is your best endurance? Where do you get your best bang for your dollar? And for me, when I was competing, it was in my legs.
And right now, Mayhem Freedom working through their 14 rope climbs. I love it. The other team to join them at this stage of the test, Gold Standard Athletics and On Track, at the bottom half of your screen, still working their way through the 70 Synchro GHD sit-ups. And this workout very similar to the individual test as well, but just a slight adjustment to the total volume. A little bit of a reduction here in the total volume compared to the individuals. The individuals had 180 total, we got 120 here total, but a slightly different nuance and wrinkle with the synchronized movements thrown into the mix.
So if you look at the top team, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, top left, they're alternating their rope climbs every single round. And if you look at Gold Standard Athletics, they're trying to catch Mayhem Freedom right now, but they're actually, the male athlete actually did 2 rope climbs before the female did a rope climb. So just a little slightly different strategy. And I'm just curious to see if that's going to give them some extras, if that's going to cost them some spots, or are they going to gain some spots from that strategy?
And right now, Mayhem Freedom is the first team to their set of 70 synchro alternating single leg squats. The remaining 3 teams are still working through their rope climbs, and so far it looks like the pair of Taylor Williamson and Chase Hill having no problem staying in sync through these squats, making quick work and looking right now like Mayhem Freedom may be running away with it. So the battle right now is for second between i1uvit, Gold Standard Athletics, and On Track. Who will be the first team to join Mayhem Freedom on the single leg squats here in this second male-female pair of 2 in quarterfinals test number 2?
I mean, pretty impressive with CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. It looks like the athlete on the right is pacing the athlete on the left right now. And so they haven't gotten any no reps, but they're staying smooth and consistent on those pistols. If you look at their cadence, and they're already halfway through, almost done with them, compared to i1uvit, which is right across from them, top right, they actually have a faster pace and they have more work done.
And you can look at the top of each video box above each one of these teams on your screen. We've got rep counters there showing progress meter to kind of keep you updated as to how far each one of these teams is working through each section of this test. And it looks like a quick little break there for CrossFit Mayhem Freedom.
The only break you saw all day.
You know, maybe just to grab a quick breath, smile at each other, and revel in the fact that they are well ahead in first place right now, as CrossFit Mayhem Freedom is putting the finishing touches on their 70 synchro alternating single leg squats, in which case they'll make their way back to the GHDs. The bottom left-hand corner looks like Gold Standard Athletics, just like the first pair, maybe struggling with the single leg squats just a tad.
Yeah, you know, when I'm looking at this right now, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the range of motion and I'm looking at the depth. That's the biggest thing that I'm looking at with Gold Standard Athletics, is I'm looking at these athletes and making sure that they're breaking that hip crease below knee crease. And if you notice, they have that heel coming off. So when you're doing that, that's wasted movement. But not only that, it's movement inefficiency, which will cost you in the later rounds.
Mayhem Freedom making their way into the second round of this test. They are back on the GHDs, going to work their way through 50 synchro GHD sit-ups to round out this test so far. And, you know, no hesitation and no slowing up. Those GHD sit-ups look as crisp as they did when they started this test, well around 10 minutes ago or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive because they're moving just like the first pair. I mean, speed and efficiency. So you know they train with each other on a regular basis. It doesn't. You could just tell. I mean, it doesn't hide at all. It shows drastically how often these guys are competing with each other and against others.
And that's one of those nuances of the team competition, the kind of unspoken communication between athletes as you work through synchronized movements. And right now it's CrossFit Mayhem Freedom in the upper left-hand corner in first place overall, followed by i1uvit. They're the second team to get back to the GHD for their round of 50 sit-ups. And then On Track and Gold Standard Athletics a little bit behind, fighting for third place in this featured matchup of 4 of the top teams from North America. And I think that's what's exciting about this. All of these teams are competing on the same leaderboard, unlike some of the other featured matchups that we've seen so far. And every single one of these reps and every single one of these performances for these individuals within this test is gonna matter because they're competing for those same spots.
I mean, as you guys know, the rules changed a little bit, so you don't have those super teams anymore. So you have to work with who's in your affiliate. And so right now, if we know, those rules just came out a couple of months ago, so I'm just curious to see how long these athletes have been actually working together to actually get their synchronized movements to be on point with one another.
Right now, on track is the 3rd team. Oh, looks like the 4th team to make it to the GHD sit-ups as Mayhem Freedom is already off the GHD and working through their 10 rope climbs. And right now, they are showing no signs of slowing up. I1uvit is the team in 2nd, followed by Gold Standard Athletics in On Track. And what we saw last time on this particular pairing, Gold Standard really struggled with the single leg squats. And as we start to get further into this test, that could be the deciding factor between them and On Track, because they're in a close race right now for the 3rd spot in this featured heat.
Yeah, whoever could come out, well, I think On Track is actually going to pull it off, because if you look at Gold Standard Athletics, they're actually working their guy a little bit more by making him do an extra couple of rope climbs. And by doing so, I want to see if that's going to affect his legs, because if you looked at the last round of the last pairing, you saw that the male started slowing down. So was it good to do an extra couple of rope climbs, or is that going to come back to bite him in the butt?
And we are closing into the final few minutes of this test number 2 of the team quarterfinals for the 2021 Noble CrossFit Games. This test number 2 brought to you by Beast Gooder. And right now it is CrossFit Mayhem Freedom continuing to dominate this featured matchup with the pair of Taylor Williamson and Chase Hill now onto their final set of 50 synchro alternating single leg squats that'll wrap up this test and a potential top time in the world. I1uvit behind them in 2nd. They're the only other team to have made their way to the rope, followed just behind by Gold Standard Athletics. They're now on the rope. On Track, a team that we've seen show up on the leaderboard in the open time and time again. They're in 4th in this featured heat right now. And we are just over 3 minutes left until the time cap. And depending how a few of these teams finish strong, we could see this time cap come into play here, but it looks like CrossFit Mayhem Freedom is well on their way to a win here in this featured matchup.
Just goes to show how well-rounded that team is. We already went through 2 tests so far, and look at the lead that they're pulling away on test number 2. Whenever you look at teams, especially if you went back about 10 years, what you would see is that you would always have players who had their strong suits, and you would have players who had their weaknesses, and so you would have to try to mismatch them so you just didn't die in a workout. Now you got teams like this where you have more well-balanced athletes who can do a little bit of everything with multiple games athletes on their teams and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited to see, these next tests coming up, but not only that, how they finish off test number 2.
And right now, Mayhem Freedom is putting the finishing touches on their test 2 performance, and they're in with a time of 22:41, absolutely blowing the doors off this featured matchup. And the only other team that is on the final movement here, that 50 synchro alternating single leg squats, is I1uvit, another team in North America out of the Pacific Northwest. And Mayhem Freedom just absolutely put on a clinic.
Well, what I want you guys at home to notice is that they finished this in 22:41. The time is still going and athletes are still moving in this workout. Teams are still working. This is basically like, if you're looking at a football game, this is like a team scoring 54 points and the other team only scoring 14 points. That's like the gap of separation right now with this workout.
And it is an impressive performance from the reigning Affiliate Cup champions, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. A new roster is no problem for them as they take down the top time so far with a time of 22:41. And the question is, who is going to finish 2nd? And right now it's I1uvit closing in on their final few reps of this test, hoping to beat the time cap as we're closing in on 1 minute left to go in this test number 2.
As we can see at the bottom, Gold Standard Athletics right there are back on their pistols. And then if we see On Track, if you notice, both of their women on Track were having trouble with the rope climbs. And I'm wondering if that's going to cost them this place.
And I Love It is in. They finish with a time of 23:57 to take second in this featured matchup, but still a minute behind CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. And now the question is, can either of these teams turn on the jets to finish underneath the time cap? It is a race for third between Gold Standard Athletics in the bottom left of your screen and On Track in the bottom right. Just 30 seconds remain now in test number 2 for this 25-minute time cap. In test number 2 to close out day number 1 of the team quarterfinals. This test, of course, brought to you by Be Scooter, and we are closing in on the 25-minute time cap, and it is going to be close.
Yeah, the biggest thing these athletes have to remember is get depth and stand all the way up. Your chest must be stacked over the hips.
And Gold Standard is in with a time of 24:52, and On Track is going to be time cap, but as CrossFit Mayhem Freedom takes the win in this featured matchup with 22:41. Going to do a little globe trotting now as we take a look at the top scores by continent for test number 2. The Mighty Oaks making it 2 for 2 out in Africa. Team Dubai representing the UAE with a top score out in Asia. And CFP9 in South America, they logged the top time with 468 reps. CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, the only team on this list to finish underneath the time cap, and they get their first win out in North America. And Neil, as we put the finishing touches on this test matchup, what really stood out?
Well, let's talk about this. It's the first time that we've seen a team dynamic show up. And the biggest thing is that you could tell which teams have been practicing and which teams probably got a late start on the practice. But overall, what we want to look at is we don't want Team Mayhem to get too much momentum, because we know what happens when they get momentum. They get a first and then they get another first and so on. So I'm hoping that tomorrow we can see some switch up of the leaderboard. I hope that there's some contenders who are going to really challenge those guys.
Yeah, you don't want to let Mayhem get too much momentum, because before you know it, they'll be long gone. That's going to do it for us here in the studio. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, please go check out our featured matchup from test number 1 as well. And of course, our day 1 recap, where we round out all the action from day 1 of this team quarterfinal round. And if you're interested in maybe taking a little vacation and going out to Madison this summer, tickets are on sale now for the 2021 CrossFit Games. You can get those only at games.crossfit.com. For Neil Maddox, I'm Tommy Marquez. We'll see you guys on day 2 of these team quarterfinals.